Hello, everybody. This is Bill once again. And today or tonight, depending wherever you are as you listen to this, I will be talking about the super gal known as Bellona, who has the nickname of the Azure Amazon due to her blue skin and hair and eyes. Um, she's a really fun one because Bellana was a ancient Roman goddess who was based upon a Greek goddess who was stolen from the Italians from some goddess that they had, who before that belonged to someone else. I don't even remember. I mean, we're getting too far back. Um, but she was never one of the let's call them the main pantheon goddesses. She was always associated with Mars, who is the god of war, and he was based on Ares, the Greek god of war. But her exact positioning was always kind of ambiguous. If you look her up, sometimes they'll say that she was married to him. Other times they'll say that she was his daughter. Others will say that she was his consort. Some say that she was just his chariot driver. So she is kind of all over the place as far as what she did and what she kind of stood for, because they already had Ares or Mars being the god of war, and they had Athena, who was the goddess of warfare. And the differences between them is that Ares was always about simple war, the brutality of it, the fighting, whereas Athena was about warfare, like military strategy and outthinking your opponents. And Bellana kind of was just this third one, like, oh yeah, and then there's her, and she's married or related to or just the driver for Ares. So she kind of has a blank slate if you want to use her as the basis of a character. So it was Dale who had actually done the research on her, and I think that's why he chose her, was because she is such a blank slate. She has the let's call it credibility of being a goddess from ancient mythology, but she hasn't been in movies and isn't very well known, and indeed we don't even really know what she did. So that kind of leaves it open for interpretation, and we could have fun with her. So I was the one just kind of cranking out the visuals of the characters at this point, and so I was like, yeah, whatever, sounds good to me. I like the ancient Greek gods and all that, so I was perfectly cool with that. um, he wanted her to be a different color, like something unusual. And we wanted to avoid green, I think, for obvious reasons, because the She-Hulk has that corner all taken care of. And I didn't want to use red because I figured that kind of instinctually people would probably figure she was a bad guy if she were red. Um, I think purple had been talked about between us because purple is seen as a color of royalty, although that's kind of going ahead in medieval times. But I just couldn't really find a shade of purple that I thought worked. It almost looked like she's holding her breath or something. So it just wasn't working for me. And then I had thought about yellow because I thought they'd give her a unique look, but it just didn't look as good on paper as it did in my head. So finally, I had settled on blue, and it seemed to work. I went with the slightly lighter shade of Electra, which Electra, for those who don't know, is a shade of blue that is most commonly used in comics, like Superman's costume, the blue on Spider-Man's costume, uh, Captain America's costume. That shade of blue is called Electra. So I went with slightly kind of brighter than that, and I guess azure is how you pronounce the word. It's kind of like sky blue, um, slightly darker than that, but lighter than Electra. And I gave that for her skin tone, and then I just used a darker, blue for her hair and her eyes, and I just made up a simple kind of leotard outfit for her, and I showed her to Dale. I was like, "Well, what do you think?" And he was like, "Beef her up a little, make her a little more muscular." And I was like, "Well, yeah, that would make sense because she was kind of earmarked to be the powerhouse." So I did that. I kind of beefed up her arms mainly, make them look stronger. And then he was like, "Cool, let's go with that." So she was fairly easy once I figured out to make her blue. um, I didn't want her to look like an ancient Greek goddess. I wanted her to be more contemporary looking. But her whole origin, which I'm not going to go into too heavy just now, because in book number 2, I hope it does get made. Let's knock on wood. I mean, if the first book, Left Far Behind, gets printed and it's fulfilled. So if you haven't gone to my Indiegogo yet, go there and sign up for it, and I'll put the link for that in the description below. But in book 2, her origin is going to be gone over. I can't discuss a few points for obvious spoiler reasons, so I won't bring that up here. But instead, I'll just concentrate on the real world origin of her. Um, Dale had created her real name, her real persona, Emily Andrews, who is a librarian. She's in her early 20s, and she has essentially been merged with the, let's call it essence, or like the soul of Bellona from mythology. And so that's when she turns 7 feet tall and muscular, and she's like probably the most powerful person on Earth. I mean, there was Captain Champion in our past. He was on a World War II team, and he was their heavy lifter, and he was probably stronger than she is, but he's no longer around. So definitely, she is the one who is kind of top of the hill strength wise, and she knows how to fight, because kind of going into Bellana's history of being like a goddess of war. So she's not someone you would want to mess with, basically. Now, luckily, she is very level-headed. Emily retains her normal intellect and control and everything, so it's not like she has any sort of rage issues or anything like that. She is very confident, probably overconfident, because I mean, hey, if someone could shoot a bazooka shell at you and it bounces off you and it's nothing more than a minor annoyance, you're probably going to be pretty confident in everything that you're doing too. You know what I mean? But because of that, that makes her fun. It makes her fun to draw. It makes her fun to look at visually. She's so much taller than everyone else, so in any sort of a group shot, I always have to put her in the back because otherwise she's gonna take up too much room in the front in front of people. But I was just when I was plotting out the books, when I was going over book 2, I wanted to have some sort of unique hook for Bellona from mythology. And when I was seeing how everything about her was like so vague, like we don't even know how she was related to everyone. I did find that there's a statue of her in London at the Waterloo station, and it's from World War One, and she is. I'll put a picture of the statue on here, but she is symbolizing mourning the overlooked living victims of war, as opposed to a memorial for the dead from war. And I just thought, like, bam, that's it. Like, that would make sense for a superhero. Like, if she was someone who was concerned about the living victims of war, like she would want to end a war fast or to prevent a war because she's concerned about the living that carry the price from warfare. I just thought that'd be an interesting approach for her to take. And so that really kind of that made me see her in a whole new light, and I thought that was really interesting. And that really made the story for book 2 just kind of like fall into place. Kind of like, I don't know. It's like I got Connect 4 in just one try. Everything just made sense and I loved it. And so I was like, I'm totally going with this. That's great. She is good friends with All American Girl because out of the original members of the team, the two of them are the closest in age. I mean, there's probably about 5 years or so between them. But I always thought visually they looked cool next to each other. There is a lot of blue between the two of them. With All American Girl's costume and then Bellona's skin and all that. But as long as you pose them right, it's okay. You don't want to have them like overlapping too much or anything. That's just one of those artist things you have to take into account. But she does have an enemy, a nemesis, if you will. She is named Leviatha, and she is a wonder. And if you remember back in All American Girls video, I talked about wonders are our universe equivalent of a mutant. We can't use the term mutant because Marvel gets very overprotective of that. And like Valiant is harbingers and DC is metahumans. So a wonder is what I use. And so Leviatha is, she's a tall woman, about 6 feet tall, and she has superhuman strength. And eventually she had met Depravia the Witch, who then used her magic to give Leviathan the ability to grow in height. And so because she was already superhumanly strong, when she grows in height, she gets really strong. And because of that, she can get really big because, she doesn't have to worry about getting too big because of her already impressive strength level at the start. So, I mean, technically, Leviatha might be stronger than Bellona, now that I think about it. I mean, she certainly would have, like, the height and reach advantage, but Bellona would be a lot faster because she's smaller and, could easily avoid Leviatha if she's too big and kind of plodding along. So, eventually I'll get to, like, be able to do a fight between the two of them, but, that's not scheduled for quite a while yet. So Bellona's going to be plenty busy, before the two of them have any sort of a rematch. But yes, in book 2, which is tentatively titled Theater of Pain, yes, I'm a Motley Crue fan. So what? Like I said, that will feature Bellona fairly heavily and go over her origin as I explain who Bellona was in mythology, and then how she is kind of entangled with Emily here in the present, and we'll even get to meet a relative of hers. Can't tell you who. You're gonna have to find out. Actually, I guess I can tell you they do make their appearance on the final page of book 1 in Left Far Behind. So you will see them there, and that'll kind of give you a little hint of what's to come. Trust me when I say that all these stories are leading somewhere. Books 4 through 6, that's the trilogy I really want to tell. All 6 books are titled. They all have their names. They're all plotted. Everything's leading towards something. I'd love to tell you all about it, but I can't. I gotta learn to keep my mouth shut on stuff. But anyway, that's it. That's Bellona on a quick going over of things. And like I said, she's fun, and I'm sure that people will like her once they get to, I'll use finger quotes, once you get to meet her. And she's not featured too heavily in book one, but you do get to see Emily, and Bellona is in it, so you do get to see a little bit of her. But anyway, yes, please go to Indiegogo. Check out my campaign there for the Super Gals Left Far Behind graphic novel. There's 4 customer tiers. One of them is limited to just 10, and 2 are already claimed. So you don't want to sit too long without ordering it. And also, I have my Big Cartel store. I'll have the links for both in the description below. And thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.